Vijay, the brother from the ancient mother. You're watching another installment of the Headspace, Africa's most poignant hip-hop channel, where we cover, uncover, discover hip-hop on the continent. You're watching the review segment, where we cover and profile the latest projects coming out of the continent from some of the most compelling, prolific, hardworking, and interesting rap acts to date. Now, the artist that I am going to review is zooming us back, Mzansi, Cape Town, an artist who occupies the limbo, the middle sander, where on one side you pretty much have what is now called Xhosa trap in a more popularized sense, which is self-explanatory. It's trap music being reinvented in the language of isiXhosa by young youth from the township of the Cape. And on the other side, you basically have your Kabsa movement, and in the periphery you have a lot of obscure Cape Town, quote-unquote, underground rap. Mvula inhabits a place that is pretty much a silver lining. He dabbles in real grunge hyper-lyricism. I mean, he brings himself out immediately and succinctly as the kind of artist you catch a poetic streak from. He's got this smooth, snazzy flow that kind of brings you in a way that is above and beyond the typical grimy, dark aesthetic of the underground, which kind of swivels into pop culture. He, as of late, has been experimenting with a lot of the trap sound in different ways, and with this latest project, My First Last Breath, which even in the title and of itself is kind of this innocuous conflict of energies, which is captured in an expression that is confusing on the surface but extremely profound when examined. And I think this is the kind of approach Mvula wants the audience to feel. He wants you to go, what? And feel so bewildered into interest that you slowly make your way into this project. And he does it by also creating a sonic texture which is extremely familiar, and I'm talking playing right into the tropes. This fits neatly and comfortably into something you would hear a J. Cole or a Saba or any other artist right now who's pretty much in the contemporary wave of the new rap scene. There's nothing extraordinarily shining within the sonic texture of this project, but here you go. Once you're there, once you're in this place of familiarity, Mvula uses that sense of comfortability to depict the initial cracks of misery. And this is where the title comes in. My First Last Breath, I think, as I interpret the project, is Mvula giving us a kind of a manifesto of what actually happens when an artist goes under. What happens when your favorite rapper cracks under the shell of industry pressure? What happens when artists who had that spark of potential seem to kind of swim into the majority dive and turn into the mediocrity of capitalist reproduction? Mvula does this by slipping right in and using dead tropes to illustrate how to find new possibilities. I mean, he really does it. He uses what you're used to show you ways in which you're not. And this, folks, is an amazing feat. How does he do this? Firstly, he does this by collective nostalgia. He does it directly by interpolating songs that we know from the radio. An example is Mariah Carey's We Belong Together, and kind of swimming into directions of song notations and arrangements that we're fully familiar with, to the point where he cuts and pastes some of the most memorable moments in pop culture to create this collage of newness. that dresses itself in this dreamy atmosphere where he's rapping in a place that's not loud but projected with a set of preciseness, but also feels very sleepy, very comforting. So in a sense, he's kind of soothing you into this place where you are open for something more. It feels like Inception. For those who've seen the movie, Mvula finds a way to enter into the subconscious of pop culture and plant his own unique ideas. And he does this with a sense of adamance. And the first track, Babalu, is kind of the story of how the musician goes voraciously into the journey of trying to make it. Here he's speaking with a sense of gusto. There's a naivete. He's illustrating to us how the journey starts when artists still think they're playing to something which is not here to try and control them. He then continues and gets a little bit staggered in ramen noodles when he finds out that the industry is always a shifting kaleidoscope that uses folk culture, translates it into pop culture, and before you know it, the things you thought were unique about yourself are being sold right back at you, and it creates this dissonance where you have to figure out who you truly want to become as you evolve. Do you want to safely lay within the bosom of what's expected? Or do you want to do what any great artist would do? It's just to push beyond. He continues, and on the track, As Above, So Below, he kind of hints at the balance between wanting people to love you, but also having to love yourself. And he does this through layered metaphors. I mean, he could be talking about the love for a woman. He could be talking about the love he has for the game. He could be talking about the love he has for the people. And this is what makes the dynamic of how he raps and the way that he set it up so masterful. Trust me, Mvula uses a delicate and awesome poetry veiled in campy satire that kind of feels typical, but oh my god, is it breathtakingly sharp when you begin to listen to it. And I think the listener will catch it because it uses, again, this oomph of the familiar. And so by the time he gets to Save Me Your Lies, the message is clear. That's what he's saying to the industry. That's what he as an artist has come to. This is what the first last breath is. He dove right into the pop scope. He got in so deep that he almost drowned. And now he's emerged in a place where he realizes, you know what? If the game means playing to your weaknesses and becoming a fraud, then I'd rather become authentic in a place where it doesn't corrugate with fame, but perhaps it can bring about something even better, which is the fortune of attracting an authentic audience, not a manufactured audience who have been lured in by likes and coverage and sponsorship. And I think this is where it all ends by saying, because I choose my artistry, because I'm able to study the game and do it so well that I am able to show you how to flip it on its head while still sounding familiar, I am still breathing. And that's the last joint. And he does this so briefly. So as a result, this is a project that I think is Mvula trying to literally dumb down one of the most intelligent messages that artists have to hear today. The message of authenticity. And he does this by not being authentic. How on earth is it possible? It's possible when you understand your artistry. And so he navigates in a way that feels typical and sonically isn't special, but the lyricism resounds and resonates beyond that. And so if I were to critique this project musically, I'd say, meh. But the same kind of mediocre fluctuations pull me in a way where I listen to the lyrics, and I think the replay value here is sheerly based off of the strength of the message. So I was torn between the fact that it pushes easily beyond the average mark, but because of the way it traps itself in being so typical, it can't be beyond a 6 or a 7. But because of the messaging, it carries something so perpetual. But messaging alone can't bring it home. So I think in a way, Mvula sacrifices the beauty of this album to make average average listeners listen to average music with an extraordinary message. And I'm using average here very, very lightly as a kind of a metaphor for people who have allowed themselves to slip into the palette of what pop music and pop culture in general tells them is the acceptable norm. So for me, it's a 6.5 out of 10 ultimately, but in terms of the ideology, it's a bona fide classic. I think this is one of those projects that will become outdated in listening to the style, but the lyrics will always resonate sharply. And I think Mvula might have just done this deliberately. He might have done this, again, as a way of beckoning into the moment he realized he needed to die in order to be reborn. Hence, first, last breath. Shout out to Mvula Drae, shout out to True Artistry, shout out to Mzansi Hip Hop, shout out to African Hip Hop. We're in an age where the artist is beginning to realize their own power. And no, that's not called being woke, because nobody is asleep. We're all just trying to navigate within the web of pop culture and capitalism and gain a sense of authenticity. My name is Vijay, the brother from the ancient mother, and I'm still breathing.